Hello, hello, and welcome back to Thinking Out Loud podcast. We know it's been a while. We had a little bit of a hiatus, but we are back and booming better than ever here with Ashlyn Little, and this is Marissa Wu. How are you doing, babe?
I'm doing good. Welcome back, guys. I've had the craziest past couple weeks. Oh my goodness. But it's okay. There's always going to be bumps in the road. There's always going to be hardships and hard times and all that kind of stuff. But yes, a lot has gone on, which is another reason that, we've had to kind of postpone um, getting on here. But we appreciate your guys' patience, and we're happy to be back. But yeah, all is good. Prep, we're about 4 weeks in.
Yeah,
Um,
how's
and
body clicking?
oh, it's been rough, let me tell you. But I do believe that some of that has attributed to stress.
Hmm.
So, I've had a lot of, personal things go on. Um, as you have probably seen, my grandmother passed away on my dad's side. So that has been, a really big toll on us. And then, Bossy it was like, I found that out. Then the next day I found out Bossy got sick and he had pneumonia. So I've had to I basically had to, rearrange my whole entire schedule because he had to go to vet visits literally like every day and get breathing treatments and x-rays and blood work and all this kind of stuff. And he just had his x-rays yesterday and the pneumonia is cleared out of his system. So he's still just taking his medication, but the breathing treatments are done. The pneumonia looks so much better. Like it's not in his lungs anymore. And just so you guys are aware, he got pneumonia because he had aspiration in his lungs. So that can happen if they drink water too quickly or breathe in while they're drinking water, and then the fluid gets into his lungs, and that's how it happens. So he had this weird little cough for a while, but they're so like Frenchies are so noisy. It didn't click to me that something was wrong. Like I didn't know that that was a cough. I just thought he was, just, being himself. So when I went to the vet, they told me that he was coughing, and they were like, "Has he been doing this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have noticed that he's been doing this for the past couple weeks." And they're like, "Yeah, that's a cough. Like that's what it sounds like." And I was like, "Oh, wow, I didn't realize that that's what that was." So yeah, so that is, clearing up. He still has a month left of his medications. So at the end of this month, he'll be done with his medication and all of that. So I think that a lot of stress has attributed to my weight kind of just, I shot up in weight and then for the first 2 weeks, and then I did come back down a little bit, but I was still in my off season weight. And now I finally I dropped a pound this past week. So that was really good to see the scale come down and just know that, my body is going in the right direction. But other than that, everything's been um everything's been good. Just work stuff, life stuff. What's been going on with you?
Nothing much, honestly. Your life has kept me occupied. So your stressors are my stressors. But
I swear,
uh
because you've been prepping. So fill us in with your prep. How have you been feeling and doing?
honestly, body has just been very stubborn, very stagnant. And I was just telling someone the other day, when I've had long seasons back to back, and I've had spurts where I've taken the off season about twice over the past few years where it was a long duration. But I've just gone through a lot as far as the travel and acclimating to new environments and whatnot. And I had peaks and valleys where my body's progressing and then it just holds. So Cash is making some manipulations, a good push to just see if my body will move. And I'm just trying to trust the process. And I'm at a point where, it's like I just need to listen to my body. If it's not cooperating with us, then we need to make a decision. And if it does start making changes, then great, so be it. But I'm detaching from stressing about it, because the more I overthink and more stress about it, the more my body's just gonna hold. So for me, I'm just doing what I need to do. But I'm for me, I just want to make sure that I'm enjoying this process.
Yeah. I think that it's really huge though, because I don't gosh, stress on the body is so crucial. Like, it can literally make somebody gain weight, it can make them hold weight, it can make like, you could be doing everything and anything being on point, like, but if your body is stressed out and your cortisol levels are high, like, you're not gonna see the changes that you're, working super hard for. So, I have 2 athletes right now. They've dropped almost 10 pounds in 1 week, literally, because their body was hanging on to so much stress, and then finally, whenever it was exams for them for school and stuff, so
Yeah.
finally, whenever that came off, they just, like, immediately started dropping weight. Like, it's crazy how much stress can really affect the body, and, I've seen it with multiple athletes, I've seen it with myself, we've seen it with you, like, it's just such a huge factor that comes into play. So, if you guys are dealing with anything that's super stressful in your life, but you're thinking that that probably isn't attributing as much, like there's just no way it can attribute that much to like your progress and things like that, it 100% can. So, the body is so smart and it's going to feed off of the mind. And, if your mind is constantly stressed out and you're thinking of all these things, but you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to see the results that you are working really hard for. So, it's really just such a tough thing in this sport, especially when you're prepping or, trying to see changes, whether it's fat loss, in a fat loss phase or contest prep, anything like that. It's huge. So, you got to roll with the punches and sometimes it just you got to dig a little bit longer than what, you have in the past or, something like that. So, you're going to get there. You always do. You just had a lot going on and I know for a fact like it's just one of those things that once your body starts rolling, it's going to roll, but, I know that, it's stressful in the beginning, especially whenever you're not seeing the things week over week when you know that you're giving it, 100%, but you've had a lot going on, so it makes sense.
Yeah. So I mean, like you said, it's stress is such a determining factor, and I think a lot of people don't even realize that their stress is sky high and they're just kind of immune to it. So, it's like you were saying, it's like, and I know you've been through this before with like your ex like years ago. It's like you're under so much stress day to day that you just don't even realize that your cortisol levels are through the roof and you're just like, oh, this is my daily. Like I've got an athlete, well, I've got a few athletes who are nurses and they work those 3 12-hour shifts and they're just fucking used to it. So they're like, I'm like, so how's stress level this week? They're like, oh, it's good. The ER was crazy and we had all these people coming in, patients, blah, blah, blah. I had to work over the 12 hours. They're like, but I'm fine. I'm like, no, you're actually not. Your body's reflecting it. Mentally, I think you're just telling yourself you're tough, let's push through, which is great to have that mental tenacity, but it takes a big step as an athlete to realize when your body is stressed and when it's not. So self-awareness in this aspect is really important. And that's why for me and like what I was Ash was just saying is that I understand that my body was through a lot of stress the past few months and I'm just letting it do its thing. I'm not forcing it to do anything other than just following the plan and letting the plan work. And it's gonna have peaks and valleys, but progress is rarely ever linear. So I know that. And like Ash was saying, once I start picking up momentum, that's when I'm gonna see the big changes. And it's just about getting over that hill.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. So, I think that, we all go through these phases and, it's me and Cash always joke about, but it's funny because I'll literally be in off season, like thriving, and it's like hard for me to not drop weight. Like when I'm in off season, I miss one meal and I'll drop weight. And then he'll drop my macros and I'll start a prep and I gain weight. I'm telling you, it's like, and it's mental. It's because I'm expecting to see the scale drop. I swear, it's all mental. It is so wild. Like I will tell Casey, I'm like, oh my God, I'm trying to get my weight to like stay where it's at or like go up because I'm in off season. I'm pushing food and I'm like, I'm trying to get this scale to move up, because that shows me that like I'm progressing in my mind. I'm like, okay, I'm progressing, like the scale's moving up, like we're good. And then, and vice versa. When you get in a prep, you want it to go down. It's like it's just so mental. And I'm like, I'm probably the only person that gets in prep and watch the scale go up. Like, like why does that
You're like,
happen to
it's
me
fine.
every time?
We're fine. No, but it's also like, and we've talked about this before. It's like especially with our division, we have to detach from scale, especially being women. You know, hormonally, we're up, down, up, down. The fluctuations on the scale can literally indicate bowel movement or your period PMS symptoms coming. So, you know, as much as women in our generation have always fixated on the scale, in our sport, we have to detach from it. It's a tool. Like I literally just had an athlete check in twice a week without the weight for the past month because it was getting to her. And then I was like, all right, I can see her body is due for a refeed, and her feedback was, you know, she's tired, she's dragging. I'm like, okay, we're gonna take a high day and a refeed, but I'm just gonna get your weight so I know where we're at. She dropped 6 pounds. And it's like, dude, you know, we use it as a tool, but it's not the end all be all. And I would much rather, I know you and I have talked about this before, I would much rather get pictures from an athlete and their feedback other than their weight if I could choose.
Oh, 100%. Like, yes, all day. I mean, I I'm a visual person. Like, I have to see the changes. Like, it's crazy because some people can drop like 3 pounds in 1 week, and I'm like, well, yeah, like you're dropping weight, but you kind of look the same. I'm like, so for me, I could care less about the scale and more about visual changes and the
Yeah.
physical changes to me. That to me is so much more of an indication because we don't have the scale. We don't have to step on scale before we get on stage. Like it's a tool, yes, and it is a valuable tool, yes. And there are times that you want to use it and times where it really doesn't matter. And I think that having a coach, or just knowing with yourself that it's not the end all be all. I think that that's huge. And you could look really good at a certain weight one time, and then you have another prep, and if you're at that same weight you don't look the same. You're like, I look different. Like, I actually look better a little bit heavier at this time. So it's very relative, and it's a very small tool. And I do much more visual. Like, it's just so much more for me, and makes everything kind of come together when I can visually see somebody changing, versus like just the scale moving. Because that to me is like, yeah, it's moving, but you still got to look a certain way to me.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep. On the same page. It's kind of a realization that there's so much that goes into your progress and assessing what your progress looks like week to week. And like I was saying, it's not linear. So there's going to be weeks where the scale goes up. There's going to be weeks when the scale goes down, but we look worse. Like it, it can be a mind game with you. But that's why also you have a coach, because that person's going to be your eyes and your reassurance that you're either on track or not. So, you know, take the thinking out of it, as hard as it is for athletes who are also coaches. Allow your coach to do what they're supposed to do. Put all your trust into them, because that's why you hired them. That's why you went to them. And it's all going to be a learning process for both yourself and your coach for your current prep and program and the next prep and program that you have.
Yeah. Yep. And that's why we have Cash, because he's like, man, you
He's the
do not
hard
look good
truth.
today. Or he's like, man, this is awesome. I'm seeing improvements. And that's what's good. Like, you want
That
somebody that's going to be like, you're watery here, you're not looking good here. Like, these are like the little areas. And sometimes it's hard to tell. Sometimes you're like, you look at someone and you're like, I'm like, I need to see you in person, like, or not in person, like a video. Like, I need to see movement. I need to see more than just a photo. Sometimes photos don't do people justice. You know what I mean? So,
exactly.
there's just so many factors that go into it, and we could discuss that all day long, but we'll move on.
Yeah, well, exactly what you said. We need that brutally hard, honest truth from Cash, and that's why we have them. Okay, so let's dive in. So we have a topic, one or two topics that we wanted to discuss because it's something that we get asked a lot from our athletes. So the first topic is dating in our industry. And this is something Ash and I have lots of experience in. So we wanted to go over this, just all aspects of it, you know, how you started, how we, you know, met people in this industry, how we went on dates with people, because I know that's a lot of people's questions and issues because they don't really know how to go on dates while they're on prep for a program. and basically, the highs and lows of dating within this bodybuilding industry. So, I'll let you, if you want, you can take it away about maybe your experience, and then I'll go after, and then after we can go over like some tips and tricks that we have when we have dated in this industry.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough, just because, this is a very selfish sport, and sometimes you gotta put, or a lot of all the time, you gotta like really put, yourself and what you gotta do, first. And, maybe it's not necessarily first. Maybe, you gotta get X, Y, and Z done for your kids and, your husband or whatever. And then you gotta make sure that you're doing all of your stuff before you go to bed. So it's like as long as you're checking off all the boxes, it really doesn't matter what order it's in, but you got to make sure that you're getting everything done throughout the day, right? That's just, we have checklists that we got to do. And I feel like that, as long as you have a partner that can really understand that, and also be like, look, like, I know that you can't go on dates with me, constantly, but one time throughout the week, let's set aside some time and, go have a dinner or something. But obviously, you're in prep, right? So you can't go and eat whatever you want. You got to kind of, I always say, go to a steakhouse. Go to a steakhouse, you can get a steak, or a chicken breast if you can't get a steak because maybe your fats aren't as high or whatever, or maybe you don't like steak or doesn't digest well or whatever the case. Get a chicken breast or get a salmon, get, a fish, a lean fish, something, with no oil or butter on it. You can still have season. You can still put seasoning on there like salt and stuff. You don't have to get it plain. Um, you still need sodium. Never cut out sodium. So, you can order something and just make sure there's no oil or butter on it, and, bring your scale with you, track it. If you're embarrassed to do that or you don't want to do that, then, it's just one of those things that it's like nobody's paying attention. It's like, and even if you have a little bit more protein, it's really mainly the carbs. And if you're really serious about your goals and you want to make sure that, you're prioritizing your goals, you know, bring your scale with you, weigh out your carb, get a potato, weigh out the potato. And then, you can just track that and make sure that you're hitting, if you're on a meal plan and you have a protein source and a carb source, put that protein source and that carb source in my fitness pal, see how much it is, and then just make sure you're eating the exact same thing whenever you go out to eat. So if you're like, all right, I got 30 grams of carbs I get to eat. All right, well, 30 grams of carbs is X amount of potatoes. So that way, when I go, I can weigh out the potato and I know exactly how much I can eat at that, point. Um,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with like, the eyeballing and stuff like that. I've been doing it forever. I can get pretty close to it. I don't like doing that. If I'm close to a show, I definitely won't do that. Um, but then again, you know, it's just one of those things that I feel like you got to give and take a little bit. So if you're gonna go eat and you want to go have a date night and like let's say you go to a dinner and a movie, it's okay to do those things. You should be doing those things. It's healthy. It's not gonna throw you off, track or anything like that. Don't feel guilty for going and doing something like that. It's good. It's going to keep your relationship in a good spot. It's going to keep your mental state in a good spot. You feel like you're going and having a free meal, even though you're really not. And I feel like that if you can really just allow your mental state to be like, okay, I'm having this one meal throughout the week that isn't necessarily a meal that I have on my exact plan. But if you're doing your macros, then you can kind of sub that out and then, just let your coach know, like, I went out to dinner with, my husband or whatever. And I had this meal, I tracked it, I had the exact same protein, I had the exact same fat, and I had the exact same carbs and what you give me, and it was all clean. So it's not anything that you're doing that's, manipulating anything that's going to make your body like not progress or halt or anything like that. So I think that having a good mindset going into, allowing yourself to do those type of things throughout the prep. And then obviously once you get closer to a show, like let's say, 4 or 3 weeks out, then, it's, hey, then now your significant other has to understand that, these weeks are important and everything's got to be dialed in. nothing outside of what you are typically eating, those type of things. So it's like a give and a take. Like, okay, I'll give you this, I'll go out to dinner, I'll do this with you, but once we get a little bit closer, 4 to 3 weeks out, then I need you to give me this. And I feel like that if you can have that communication with your significant other, they should be able to understand that and support you. And just like you're doing the same thing with them, it's got to be a give and a take.
Yeah, I mean, I know this is like a hard truth, and I know it's kind of hard when someone's starting to date people or they're just meeting people, but I've told athletes, like, hey, I know you are very, very serious about your prep and your program and your goals, and I've seen it. And I know that you are dating right now, but if he or she does not support you and makes you feel uncomfortable or makes you feel like you can't bring your scale and weigh out your food because you want to go on a date with them but still stay on track, if they really don't support you and that makes you feel off, then maybe that's just not the person for you. And it is a hard truth because I know you're trying to get to know somebody, but if they're gonna make you feel like resentful of following your plan, then maybe you need to date someone else. um and I think that kind of brings us not to be
But
rude.
honestly, it's true. It's honestly really true because dating in this, and when you're like a hardcore like bodybuilder, it is hard. You either got to date somebody that's in the industry that understands it, supports it, and is on board with that, or you have to date somebody that doesn't judge you for it. Really.
Yeah, and there's a it's a double-edged sword. There's pros and cons to both, and I've only had the experience with dating someone very, very involved and indulged in this industry because of how involved I am. And I know you're the same. And I've always found it to be, and I've mentioned this before in a previous podcast, but my dad would always ask me, are you only going to be with a bodybuilder? Are you only going to date a bodybuilder? And I'm like, well, in retrospect, I only want to be with someone who understands entirely what I go through and doesn't judge me or question me. And down to, why are you spending hours in the gym and doing cardio and not with me? Why are you too tired to go out on a date when you're 6 weeks out or even 8 weeks out? Because I'm very type A and anal about that. But it's not a vanity thing. I cannot care more or care less, whatever the saying is, about someone having a six pack and being jacked. Honestly, because we're in this industry, I'm very immune to it. Of course, I would like my partner to be, well versed in nutrition and health so that they understand where I'm coming from. And they have to care about, being healthy. But I don't need them to be just as jacked as an open bodybuilder because I'm in this industry. But I need them to be on the same page as me because this is not just a hobby for me, it's a lifestyle. And if their views and my views contradict each other, then it's not going to work out. And honestly, I know it's hard though on the opposite end when you're both very, very well involved. You're both competing, you're both coaches, you both do the same exact thing day in and day out. It's a bit, not just a bit, it's very overwhelming. And I've learned that the hard way in my past few relationships is that there has to be some type of balance and there has to be some type of living life. And I know there's a lot of back and forth on this topic about you can't have balance in bodybuilding and this and that. And I think balance looks different to everyone. Like when I'm 8 weeks out, there is no balance. I'm locked in. But when I'm 20 weeks out or in an off season, by all means, I want that balance. I mean, even now, I don't know when I'm competing, but I'm just having the flexibility of going out and seeing concerts and live music and going to clubs like with some of my girlfriends because I've not done that and I'm 28 and I've all of my 20s I've not gone to clubs, I don't go to bars, I don't drink. I go to these concert and these music things and I'm not drinking, I'm just having a good time. And I don't want to look back and be like bodybuilding took away everything and then I resent it. I can still stick to my goals and still go out and have fun and have a social life. And when it comes to dating, honestly, you have to stop and think, okay, does everything always have to revolve around food? No, you can go to the bowling alley. You can go to a sports game. I've gone to like NBA games, NFL games, MLB games, and those were fun because you get time to hang out with a person, talk with a person, enjoy an event. You can go to comedy shows. Like there's so many other things you can do that don't have to be food related. It just takes a little bit of thinking. You just have to be like, okay, what can we do together? And honestly, it makes you get to know that person more when you're like, okay, what can you and I do that doesn't involve having to go eat, and we have to actually go conversate and learn more about each other.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And if, let's go to the opposite end where you you're already married. You have never been in bodybuilding. You're already married to somebody. Neither one of you guys, like maybe you guys go to the gym, all of that, but like you guys aren't like in the industry, but you want to be. You're starting to be like, "Man, I want to compete. I think that that would be fun." Or maybe you just, you done one show and you really liked it.
Hmm.
Um, you know, it's going to be a challenge with your significant other if they do not understand it. But if they love you and they want you to be happy, they will support what it is that you want to do. Now, is it going to be tough? Probably, because it's an adjustment. It's a whole new world that you're entering in. And it's adjustment for both of you guys. It's not just an adjustment for your significant other. It's also an adjustment for you. So I feel like that the people that I notice that have the toughest time with this are people that are not used to being in the industry, that are already a couple, that then
Hmm.
go into the industry, or one of them goes into the industry and they start wanting to bodybuild, or in bikini or whatever it is, that whatever division they're in, they start prep, and it's a whole life change. They can't go out and whenever they want, they can't sit at home and eat snacks whenever they want, they can't do all the things that they were doing before. And a lot of times, it causes problems in the relationship because the other person doesn't want to diet, and then they're going to keep doing what they're doing. They're going to sit on the couch and eat their food, and then you're over here cranky because you're in a prep that you're choosing to put yourself in,
Hmm.
and you're just like, "Oh, why can't you just like do this with me? Why can't you can't put that on somebody else. You cannot put your prep on somebody else. If you're doing this, you got to do this for you, and no matter what anybody else is doing around you, you have to be okay with them doing and eating and drinking and whatever it is that they're doing. You got to be okay with them living their life and doing that. You can't expect somebody to change everything that they're doing because of something that you want to do. And I think that
Oh,
that's very
100%.
unfair, and I feel like that a lot of people do that in relationships. They expect their significant other to, do what they're doing. And hey, if your significant other is like, "Hey, I want to diet with you, let's do this together." And they're just getting in your way. Okay, I could understand that being frustrating 100%, because it's like, "Hey, if you're not going to do this with me and you're just going to get in my way, let me just do this. And I just need you to support me, and I need you to, just be there and tell me I look good." Like that's really all I need you there for, and then my coach can do all the rest. So, it's one of those things that I just feel like that you can't put that on somebody else. Like if you have kids, you can't be like, "Oh, I'm not going to keep anything fun in the house because it tempts me." Then that's something you need to work on with yourself, because you can't expect other people in your household to not have things around because it tempts you. Well, if it's, 2 weeks out and you're just like, "Hey, for these next 2 weeks, I really just need to not have any of this stuff around me," then that's a sacrifice they should be able to do for you to show their support. 2 weeks is not that long. Now, if you're asking for them to do it the whole prep, that is a little bit extreme in my opinion. I wouldn't ask somebody to do that, but 1 to 2 weeks, okay, if they should be willing to sacrifice something like that for you. But there's got to be a give and a take on both ends. You can't expect somebody to do something for you and then not do anything in return, and vice versa. So you always have to have that give and take in a relationship, and you got to make sacrifices and they got to make sacrifices, and that's really just what it comes down to. And I feel like that if you can be honest with yourself about that, then things will kind of go a lot smoother. But if you just have a really hard-headed person that doesn't want to support you and doesn't want to do anything like that, obviously it's going to be really challenging, and that's unfair. And that's something that you're going to have to think about, obviously, and what you truly want and what's the best for you. And you guys got to work through that, but you got to have that give and take in a relationship. It can't just be one way or the highway on both ends. And I think that that's what really causes problems in a lot of relationships, is that people expect a certain thing from somebody, and they expect them to do it for X amount of time or whatever while they're accomplishing their goals. And like, that's not fair to put that on someone else.
Yeah, I mean, we've always said this is bodybuilding is a choice and it is a privilege, and no one else around you signed up for it. Granted, if your significant other is like, "I'm all in, I support you," that's great. And sadly, I've seen it with clients. sometimes that flip switches. A significant other may be all in and supportive, and then when they're in the midst of it and they see the dynamic change, I think that is the hardest part, is that when you're already in a stable relationship and then you enter bodybuilding and this industry, the dynamic is going to change. And sometimes the support and the initial, say so of like, hey, I'm here for you, may change from your significant other. And honestly, it, it's really hard because I've not ever been in that position, but you have to be okay with that. If they end up not wanting to do this for you or not being, 100% all in supportive, you can't control that. And even if that's a marriage, I know that sounds hard to say because I dealt with it with an athlete recently, and I honestly was in a standstill because she's like, I don't know what to do. I'm sacrificing my goals, and I'm not going to tell a person, okay, well, leave him. But I am going to be like, you need to assess what's important to you, both in this relationship and both with your goals. What's going to be the sacrifice? The stage is always going to be there, but goals don't always have to be stage oriented. Your goal to get better, improve yourself needs to also be an importance, because how are you going to pour into that person if you don't feel 100% whole and in control of your fitness and health and happiness and joy? And so it is hard. Both situations are hard, whether it's you're already in a relationship and entering the sport, or you are actively dating or talking to someone within the sport. And I've found it that, again, I'm not dating anyone. I'm not interested in dating anyone right now. But when the time comes, I need to be more flexible with how I approach like who they are and how they are active in this industry. I still feel like I will match better with someone who is in this industry. That doesn't mean that they have to be an active competitor, but I do want them to understand fully what it takes to be in the sport and how much capacity it takes from me, because their expectations on how I am in the relationship and in dating are going to be more realistic if they understand fully. But at the same time, it's really freaking hard, because if they are competing, I've learned that it's, for me, it's really hard because all I do is bodybuilding, and especially when I'm deep in prep, that it all consumes me. So this relationship is going to be all consuming when I'm deep in prep, and he is going to have to be okay with that.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. It always is. Whether prep by itself is such a huge challenge. And I just feel like that the more you can communicate with the other person, and you can't force somebody to accept it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that's just the thing, then, like you said, like, you kind of just got to figure out what is the most important thing. And if the most important thing is saving your guys' marriage and having that, and they're not willing to, you know, support you in that specific, arena, then it is difficult. It is something that you're just like, you know, you kind of have a tug of war in your brain. Like, if you really love me, when you support me, but sometimes it's not because they're not supporting because they don't love you. It's because they don't understand it truly.
Hmm.
Like, it's just because they just truly don't understand what it takes and what it takes out of you, and all of that, and what goes in the ins and outs of it. And it's just like when people don't understand something, it's hard for them to accept it.
No, 100%. And with this, you can't force someone to understand it. You have to let them come to it on their own. And I kind of like the aspect of like, okay, when you start dating someone, that's why I tell my girls, like, off the bat, if you're on a date and you need to weigh out your food, just do it. Because that's going to be the expectation you're setting up for him or her down the road. Like, this is what he or she is getting himself into. So don't beat around the bush. Don't try to compromise to the person that you're just getting to know. There's difference when you're already, like we were saying, already in a marriage, already in a deep relationship, and finding those compromises and sacrifices while achieving your goals. But when you're this is my advice. Everyone has their own perspective, but when you're first dating, off the bat, let him know, hey, like, I track my food. We can go to a restaurant. I have to be like the steakhouse or Cheesecake Factory because I have to weigh up my food with no oil, no butter. And I'm gonna whip out my scale at the table, and I may whip out my condiments as well. And this is me.
Yeah.
But
Don't be embarrassed.
that,
I feel like people get so embarrassed. Like they're like, "Oh my
I
God, I don't want to take
know.
my scale." And don't get me wrong, I still to this day get embarrassed kind of whipping my scale out. But you know what? It's only an embarrassment for like that first like initial minute and then it's done. And then I'm like, "Okay, this is fine, whatever." But
I've
yes.
never had an embarrassment, but I remember I was with my family and I didn't even think about this because my brother and like all his friends like smoke and stuff. So when I whipped out my little travel scale, they were embarrassed. They're like, it looks like you're about to like weigh out like your weed. And I was like, oh, no, I'm literally just weighing out my
Weighing out my
chicken.
drugs. Hold on.
I'm not like when we were at like Cheesecake Factory, like BJ's. And my brother was like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm weighing out my food. And then he's like, looks like you're gonna weigh out like a dime of like your weed. I was like, oh my god. And then I've never been like embarrassed about it, but honestly, my family is so used to it. My friend, obviously, all my friends do this, and like we all just went out with Jody for her birthday last month, and half of us weren't eating. We were just sitting at the table and we were fine with it because it's expected. We understand. And like, they don't tell me, oh, just take a bite of this, take a bite. I'm like, you guys know I'm not gonna take a bite of it, but I'm here for you.
Yeah.
So creating those expectations, those standards from the get-go, I think is gonna help going forward because then there's no surprises and you don't have to feel embarrassed easing your way into showing them what you're all about. And that's just my biggest advice.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. I think that if you're just real right off the bat, then hey, y'all aren't invested. So if they're not the one, then peace. Like, it's like, would you
Exactly.
rather it get like just laid out on the table right away and just let them decide if that's something that they're interested in or if that's something that bothers them or whatever. And
Yes.
there are people out there that judge you, but guess what? They're judging you whether what it is that you're wearing, what it is that your hair color is. Like they're like people just judge. People are judgmental. Humans are judgmental no matter what it is you're doing. So you don't live in fear of that. You do what you want to do and you have to be confident in that. And sometimes it does, even though you're a little bit embarrassed, you just do it anyways. Like I had that, when I was starting out, I didn't know anybody that competed. None of my friends competed. I was the only one. I was the oddball. So, my family didn't understand it. They always made fun of me. Every time I brought my scale, they were like, "Oh, here she is again, her freaking scale." Yeah, they made fun of me. They called me out. And you know what? I just am like, "Yep, yep, I did bring my scale. It's here. It's my best friend." Like, yep. And now my mom is texting me, "Tell me what you need. I'm gonna get all of your groceries. You're in
Yes,
prep." Like
exactly.
so people eventually get used to it. It's like, you may have those annoying comments. Don't let it get to you. Just be like, "Yep, yeah, I got goals. I'm serious. Like this is like for real for me." Like that's the more confident you are, the more people are going to be like, "Oh, okay, she's confident." Like I used to bring my scale and my food to work every day when I worked at the chiropractic office because I was in prep for my pro card. I was prepping for national show. And it was a brand new job. I didn't know anybody. And they all had their ordering their lunch. "Hey, what do you want for lunch? I'm gonna order this." They all brought their little all their, snacks and everything like that. And here I am with my oatmeal and my protein shake and, my chicken and, eventually all of them wanted me to help them start prepping. Literally all of them. They were like, "Oh my God." Like at first they made fun and they were like, "Oh my gosh, you're like serious, aren't you? Like here you are with your little like picking at me like with my meals and stuff." And I just did it every day and they were like, "Wow, like you are committed. Like I want to be just like you." Like that's how people are. They make fun because they're almost like embarrassed that they didn't do that. They're like
Yeah.
embarrassed that they're ordering food out and you have that. So to make them feel better about it, they're going to try and bring you down. And they don't do it to be mean, I think. Like I think it's more of like an insecurity for some people, which is why they do that. And I think that if you cannot take that personally and actually look at the other side, like why is that person saying that? Probably because they're not happy with their eating habits and things like that. So they want to try and, make fun of somebody else to make themselves feel better. And I feel like that, the more you can start being like, that's a you problem. That's not a me problem. That's a you problem. The more you can realize that and like actually do that, you're going to be like, okay, like I'm solid. Like I'm doing what I'm doing. This makes me happy. Tomorrow I'm going to be even leaner than I was today because I stuck to my stuff and I didn't let anybody influence me and I didn't let anybody bring me down thinking that like, that what I'm doing is not, like normal, whatever it is, whatever normal is to people. And I think the more you can just, have that mindset, the easier it's going to be. And, I deal with it even today. I can't even walk into the vet's office without somebody, talking about my muscles or whatever. And it's just like, and it's just it comes with it. It just comes with it. I'm so used to it now. I can roll with the punches. I can, if somebody's gonna make fun, I'm gonna be like, yep, like it doesn't affect me anymore. It used to. It was something that I was like, oh my God, this is annoying. Can this just stop? But it's never gonna stop. Like if you're committed to your stuff and you want to bring your little Tupperware and whatever, you're gonna see people make fun of that and whatever, but it is what it is. And you just got to be like, well, this is my life and this is what I want to do. And you got to have a significant other that is okay with that. And as soon as you can like bring that up to them and get and let them know that's how you are because you're in prep or whatever, they're either cool with it or they're not. And if they're not cool with it, then don't invest your time into them because they're obviously not going to support you. So, just having that, initial conversation with someone and really getting that on the table and maybe having a conversation with your husband, like, hey, I've been thinking about doing this. Like, I know it's kind of crazy and I know I've never done it before, but, it would mean so much to me if you, could support me in this. And I just would like to see kind of like what my body's capable of. And, they'll maybe be iffy at first, but just being able to have that communication with them and kind of seeing where it goes is, could be a good thing. And then just kind of roll with it and see where you guys end up. It's just something that I think is going to be a challenge, but it's just how the industry is. And I think the more you can like accept that, the easier it'll be on you mentally.
Yeah, no, 100%. I couldn't have said it better. Um, but yeah, that's basically like obviously our experiences and little tips and advice on dating one in general and then dating within this industry and being okay and secure with yourself. Like you have to be, sounds cliche, you have to be okay with who you are, what you do, and your goals before you start dating, because if you're wishy-washy about all that, then who you date is going to dictate who you are and how you act. And that's aside from bodybuilding. That is just rule of thumb. You need to be okay with who you are alone before you get into a relationship. I've always said that and I will stick by that. That's also why for a lot of girls who date around and just try to fill voids, I'm like, well, do you know who you are without a man? Take time alone and figure out what your goals are and what you like to do, not associated with him or her. And that way, when you get into a relationship, you are purely bringing your best to the table and you're happy with who you are so that you can give to him. You can give everything wholly to him without resentment, without being easily persuaded by what he likes and what he wants you to do.
Yeah, it's got to be a give and a take in any situation. There's always got to be a give and a take, and I feel like that if you feel strongly about something, you voice that, and you guys, communicate that, and then it's just something that in this industry, it's tough. It's tough dating in this industry. Period. Like I don't care. Like it's difficult. It's always going to be, and I've already accepted that it's going to be difficult. But I'm gonna like we are going to find the people that are going to be supportive, and we are going to find the people that mesh with us and that are going to really just be more of a positive you know thing in our life and influence in our life than somebody that's just constantly trying to bring us down. And that's what you want a partner that's going to support you even in your craziest ideas. It's like they may not love it, you know what I mean, like that's may not something that they love, but at least they are willing to allow you to do something that's going to make you happy, and that's the most important thing. And all I can say is that it doesn't get easier as far as like, preps are always going to be hard. Your significant other and you may bicker here and there, but you're going to bicker probably anyways. So
Yes, it's inevitable. And if you don't, kudos to you, but there might be something wrong if you guys never fight.
Yeah, so, it's just a part of the industry and just how it is, but, you
No,
know.
exactly. And then one last, and this can be a little quick one, but especially with us getting ready to travel to shows for our athletes and going to family events and whatnot, a question that I think we've always gotten asked, and I think a lot of people are curious about, is traveling and what you can do to stay on plan, what you can bring on a flight, what you can do in a hotel room. And literally, Ash and I have mastered this. I wouldn't say I'm good at packing smart. Like I don't pack light. That's not advice I could give. I just overpack and pay the fee. Like I will pay however much amount I need to bring everything I may need and probably only use like 10% of it. But the
Better
essentials,
safe than
uh
sorry.
always, like we don't need 10 outfit changes for a 2-day trip, but it's coming with us anyways. But my suitcases, I've gone through, granted I've traveled like all over the world the past 2 years, but I think I've gone through 8 suitcases, but I've gotten them from TJ Maxx. So if anyone has a recommendation for good big suitcases for traveling internationally, please let your girl know.
Seriously.
But okay, so here's one thing people always get confused about is what you can bring on your carry-on. Girl, guys, whatever, you can bring whatever you want as long as it's under the fluid ounces. So for example, people forget, so like yogurt and peanut butter, you can't bring on, I think it's more than like 4 ounces or something. So if you need peanut butter, weigh it out in a little condiment jar and then bring it on. But everything else is perfectly fine. You can bring like, and like ketchup and stuff, you have to weigh it out and put it in a small jar. But everything else like sauce, seasonings, like everything but the bagel seasoning or salt and pepper, stevia, you can bring all of that on. I always bring a big shaker bottle, fill it up at the filtered water stations at the airport, because like I'd rather have, it's normally like a half-gallon one or a 1 liter one. That way I can track my water easily. And then obviously waters at the airports are like $10, so I don't have to pay for that. And then everything else I pack in my check-in. So when it comes to hotels, we always bring a skillet or a little pan thing to cook our food on. And I just bring everything with me. Like I'll bring all my seasonings and all my frozen chicken. And then I'll let it thaw and then I'll put it in the fridge there. But what Ash and I always do is, okay, one of us brings all this seasoning or stevia and stuff. The other one brings the pan. The other one brings the burner. And then we'll just do an Instacart when we get there. Make sure that it's delivered at the hotel or the Airbnb. And that way we don't skip a beat. And I think a lot of people find an excuse when traveling, like, oh, I'm going to be in a hotel, like I'm going to land and I won't have time. Well, resources, ask your coach, ask your friends, like, okay, how do I stay on plan when I get to my location? And honestly, it's easy once you get a hang of it and you know what to do, but it's just about planning. Don't wing it. If you know where you're going to be, you know what time you're going to be at a place, you know you need how much food that you need when you're there, just plan accordingly and order.
Yeah, so I always bring my little skillet, as you guys have seen on my story. And it's a pretty big skillet, but I mean, it can fit in even a small bag. And then I make sure it's clean, obviously. And I'll put other stuff, like I can put stuff in the skillet and then like pack around it. So I just bring my little skillet, you just plug it in, it heats up super fast. It's like I love this thing. It's just amazing. And it's any brand. I think I've had like 3 or 4 different brands and I've just gotten some off Amazon. I've been to Walmart. One time I forgot a skillet and I went to a Walmart or a Target that was down the street and I just got one. So they have them everywhere. But I recommend just getting one and then traveling with it. And then yeah, you just bring, of course, your utensils, like bring a couple of bowls, like a container that you would typically eat out of, like a to-go container. I just bring a couple of those and I just use those for my meals. So, if I have a day where I know that I'm going to be gone all day, like out, and I need to make sure that I have enough containers, then I mean, I have 5 meals throughout the day, so I'm just like, all right, I'll bring 5 containers. And I just reuse those, I just wash them and, reuse them in the next day. If I'm traveling, if I get in early, then I know I just have to pack 1 meal. And then whenever I get there, or 1 or 2 meals, that way I can eat whenever I get there and I can Instacart and I can wait for my food to get there. So that way I'm not sitting there like, oh my gosh, I have to eat, but my food isn't here yet. Um, I typically like to get to the hotel, see how much space I have with, the refrigerator and stuff like that, and then I'll order my stuff whenever I get there. But I have ordered it on the flight before. I've just gotten Wi-Fi and just ordered it on the flight. That way it was there like by the time I got there. And then I just had my meals already packed for me for that day. So that way I didn't have to worry about needing food for that day. I already had my meals. But I needed it for the next couple days that I was there. So, Instacart's great. I just get the sticky white rice that's already frozen, so I don't have to worry about cooking rice. The sticky white rice that's already frozen, they have a PF Chang's version, or they have one that's in like a white and blue box it's like I can't remember the name of it,
I think it's like
honestly.
chopsticks or something, or
Yeah,
it's like
something like
it's a
that.
light blue one. It's all in the frozen section, and they also have, so some of the microwavable like white rice packets have a little bit of fat in it, but there are select few like the minute rice that don't have any additives in it. But simplify your foods a bit more. Maybe just use rice cakes and almonds or nuts or whatever. And then your protein sources, like Ash was saying. So I like to use like egg whites and whole eggs and chicken. So I will try to bring all the chicken that I need. And then worst comes to worst, I will call like Cheesecake Factory or BJ's, or some type of American steakhouse or grill house, and see if they can make like steamed chicken, or no oil no butter chicken. And then I have that and I just weigh it out. And you can also do that at like a Thai place. They'll steam everything. They'll steam your veggies, your rice, and your chicken. You can order from there and then weigh it out. So there are alternatives. And like Ash was saying, so what we use typically is we bring like the collapsible bowls. So those are really easy to travel with. So I'll bring like one or two collapsible bowls. I'll bring like a little sponge and like a little bottle of soap. So I'll wash the dishes in the bathroom. Granted, hotel bathrooms are not made for washing dishes, so be a little careful with that. But and then the other thing that we do is like we when we travel with our Protan stuff, so we just bring towels and extra Ziploc bags because they can leak sometimes. And then we bring, for my scale, when I weigh myself body scale, there's a travel scale on Amazon. So guys, everything is on Amazon. Anything you can think of, just type it in on Amazon and you'll find it. There's travel ring lights that are a bit smaller. There's travel scales that are like little rectangles. They're about like a foot long, super easy to travel with. So it's very easy to stay on track. You just have to plan and have resources. Ask the questions. Obviously, if you have coaches like Ash and I, ask away. There's no such thing as a dumb question, especially when it comes to new things that you've not done before.
Yeah. And I like my stuff. I like my meat. I don't like to cook it and freeze it. I used to do that, actually, but now I like it fresh. It's just how I am.
Yeah, because
So
you actually cook it raw from
raw.
each meal.
Yeah, I'll cook it raw. And get um I will just get the meat. I'll just go to the grocery store, or I'll Instacart. And I'll just get the stuff, that I need to cook or whatever, and then I'll just put it in the freezer, and then or the fridge, and then I just cook it as I go, like I would if I was at home. So
Yeah.
I try and do everything just as I would if I was at home. If instead of getting like eggs, like since I have one egg, sometimes I'll just get the a couple bags of the hard boiled eggs, and
Hmm.
then I will just take the yolks out of the ones that I just need the egg whites for, and I'll just eat the egg whites, pour a little bit of salt on them, eat the egg whites, and then my one yolk, I'll eat the whole egg, and I'll just do, the egg and the yolk. I did that actually at Clash, this the Girl Power show. Whenever I traveled, I didn't want to get liquid egg whites and do all that because our fridge was small. So instead, I just got 2 bags of, because I only have egg whites for 2 meals, or for 1 meal throughout the day, but I was there for 2 days. So I just needed it for my morning 1 and my morning 2. So I just got 2 bags and I ate the egg whites out of it, put the yolk away, and then for my 1 egg, my 1 whole egg, I just ate the whole egg. So, instead of cooking that, I just had that. I just ate that. And then oats, this is a good one. So a lot of places don't have microwaves anymore. So how I make oats is I will use the coffee machine that's there, and I will just get the hot water. So instead of putting coffee in there, I just put water. I will press start and it'll just run hot water. So then it runs hot water into a cup. I weigh out my oats into a different cup, and then I pour the hot water into the oats, however much water I want. Then I'll stir it up and just kind of let it sit for a minute, and it's good to go. Then you have oats that are good. You can eat those. So instead of having a microwave heat it up, the hot water does the job for me, and I don't have to worry about finding a microwave and all that stuff. If you're doing creamer rice, that's different because you can't just pour the water into it. So that would be the only thing that you would need a microwave for, would be for the cream of rice if you're doing that. But if unless it's show day, then they have microwaves normally, or you can just go to Target and buy a microwave and then return it. But
Yeah, I mean,
I know
you can.
I know it's a hassle, but
I've done it so many times. I would go to Walmart or Target and buy a microwave because they're like $30 or $40 and be like, because you can return things at Walmart, Target like super easy. And but the next day I would just have to catch my flight super early. So I would just end up leaving the microwave in there. But you can honestly like you don't need them. You can eat things cold. But you can buy a travel microwave. It's like a little, it looks like a little lunchbox. I have one. I don't actually really use it, but it's on Amazon. It's like a portable microwave. You plug it in and it just keeps things warm. So it's not so much that you can make cream of rice in it, but if you have like chicken and rice and you want to just pop it in there with your Tupperware, you just have to let it sit there for like 30 minutes or whatever. So if you know your next meal's coming up. But there's actually, I wanted to say there's this it's not cream of rice, it's baby rice. You can make it without hot water. So the rice will actually volumize and be edible. I have to find what brand it is, but there is some type of baby rice out there that's basically the same macronutrients and clean carb source as cream of rice. And you can just mix it with normal room temp water. So that's an option as well. But when it comes to traveling and say you're on a meal plan and you don't know what to substitute, literally just talk to your coach and let them know. The only caveat to traveling internationally is being able to know what the macronutrients are of whatever sources they're using. So if you can't read the labels and it's not scanning on MyFitnessPal, that's the only thing that you would really need to figure out before you travel.
yeah, I think I only traveled once internationally. That was to Bermuda when I competed, when I was prepping, and I am trying to remember what I brought food wise. I think I cooked everything and just put it in my bag, and I didn't have any issues. I don't know. But I checked my bag and they ran it through and there was no issues. So I think you can look up and see like what food, like you could look up like on the airline like what food items, you can't have in there, cuz some of it is like, it's like illegal to bring like some sort of food
Produce.
item, yeah,
Yeah.
into it, but it's really weird foods. It's not foods you would typically have on prep anyways.
I
So,
have heard something about internationally to Asia. I've had a few friends who would compete there. They confiscated their protein that they had in their check-in because a lot of them, when you land, say you travel from New York to Hong Kong and that's your connecting flight, you have to unboard, get all your luggage, put it through security again. So that's the one thing that you would have to be careful with is if you are checking in your luggage again and they're going through it from customs. So customs is typically where things get caught up on.
okay. Yeah, see, I haven't experienced that yet. So, just going to Bermuda, it was easy. I didn't have any issues. And we I think I brought everything I needed there because I wasn't really sure. Like, honestly, it was kind of in the middle of nowhere, and the place was like far away. So I just brought everything. And honestly, it was just like the essentials. Like, it was just, I brought some rice already cooked. I brought, and don't get me wrong, it's not going to be the freaking freshest rice that you've ever had. All right. It probably sat in the thing, but that's
There's some
okay.
soggy or hard rice.
Yeah, it might not be the freshest, but you know what? It's just for a couple days and it's whatever. So, whenever you're prepping and all that kind of stuff, I just kind of know like, if it's somewhere that's weird that I'm going to. that's kind of in the middle of nowhere or something, and I don't really have access to a grocery store, then, then I'm just going to kind of suffer for a couple days and it'll be whatever. But just be prepared. Like you said, it's just about planning and figuring out, what's available to you, and then, bringing the stuff that isn't available to you, so that way you have everything, and, just condensing what you typically have. So it's like, if you eat rice, potatoes, cream of rice and oats all throughout your day, it's like, all right, well, let's just go ahead and pick one of those, or two of those that are easy. Oats are extremely easy to travel with, and rice is extremely easy to travel with. So it's like, all right, there's your two carb sources right there. Um, if you're low on carbs, rice cakes it is. Just go full on rice cakes. So it's kind of just like, depending on how much food you have to eat, and then condensing all of that down, and then just kind of going from there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know it's easier said than done, and Ash and I have been doing this for like a decade. So when we say it may sound like we're not so stressed about it, or it's not a big deal, but it's just because we've done it for so long. And when we pack for traveling, or have a trip, it's what is it? It's out of habit the way we pack. We overpack because we just know that we would much rather be prepared than not. And once you start doing this more often, you're gonna get used to it. Like, I literally have to plan. When I used to travel to Dubai, that was a 16.5 hour flight, straight flight. But I also had to account for driving to LA from San Diego. That was another 2.5 hours waiting for my flight. So I had to plan out when I needed to eat my meals, when I needed to sleep on the flight, when I needed to eat my first meal when I woke up on the flight, so that I could be on a regimen within the 24 hour. That's very complicated. I'm not saying everyone has to do that, especially if you're just traveling from state to state, but planning. It just comes down to planning, and being a little over the top with planning is better safe than sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's it.
So yes, yes, but that is basically the little topics we wanted to touch on today. And we're going to be doing our podcast every 2 weeks now. We want to be able to gather, a lot more questions, be able to dive fully deep into the topics that you guys all throw at us. And we are also in the midst of figuring out a better way to do the video podcast with better quality, both visually and microphone wise. So bear with us. We did our last episode with Margaret, we did, but we weren't able to figure out videotaping the Zoom where it showed all three of us, even though we set up the settings like this. So any advice that you guys have with that, please shoot us a message. We would much, much appreciate that.
Yeah, we're figuring out the kinks. And we got to just get, some more of just better equipment. So all of that is in the works, should be here next week. And then we will get on top of, our normal videos and all of that good stuff. But, we obviously love you guys. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Anything, suggestions you guys have that you want us to touch on, we want to be able to, provide as much as we can to you guys. So we love you all. We are looking forward to our next video
Yeah.
podcast, and we just appreciate you guys. So thank you for joining us, and like and comment and subscribe and share, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks.
Yes, yes. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Love you lots. And happy Mother's Day to all the mamas out there,
Yes, happy Mother's Day.
and to also the dog moms.
And also me, because I'm a dog mom.
And by affiliation, and I'm your 20, I'm also a dog auntie mom. So I'll
Dog
take that as
auntie
a
mom.
there's
I'm
no
so
auntie day, so I'm just gonna call myself a dog mom with Bossy, with our strong boy Bossy.
I love it. Well, thank you guys. We will talk soon.
All right, bye.
Bye.